your side.
It began today when a mob overwhelmed government security forces in Moscow. The Russian President Boris Yeltsin has seen his authority seriously challenged. Many hours later, he is not in complete control.
From ABC, this is a special Sunday edition of World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. This has been a staggering Sunday in Russia. In the heart of Moscow, several thousand people opposed to the Russian President Boris Yeltsin have revolted against his authority. And the result has been a day of running battles for control of the Russian parliament and various broadcasting outlets which anyone in charge has got to control. It's 13 days now since Mr. Yeltsin dissolved and then isolated the Russian parliament. Today, his renegade vice president, Alexander Rutskoy, has been fighting back. It is a chaotic situation in which any outcome still seems to be possible. A great many people have been injured, several have been killed, and as ABC's Jim Laurie has documented in our first report, Mr. Yeltsin certainly underestimated a Russian mob.
The political standoff took its dramatic turn as 3,000 to 5,000 anti-Yeltsin demonstrators outmaneuvered riot police and broke through the cordons to reach the Russian parliament building. Police had been reinforced in the city, but clearly not enough. Riot police fired their rifles into the air. They turned tear gas on the crowd, but to no effect. The crowd shouting, "We are here, we are here," rallied at the Russian White House, where parliamentarians had been isolated. One unit of about 100 of Yeltsin's Interior Ministry troops appeared to defect to the opposition. And on a balcony, rebel leader Alexander Rutskoy called on the crowd to storm the state television station and a nearby building housing offices of the city council. Well-armed supporters of Rutskoy launching the attack on the city council building took its defenders by surprise. At least 2 of the pro-Yeltsin defenders were killed. Under orders not to shoot, the stunned Yeltsin forces were quickly overwhelmed. The attack rewarded the anti-Yeltsin militia a stash of heavy weapons, armored personnel carriers, and communications equipment. With that, truckloads of armed men headed out to the state television complex, where they smashed into the building, launching an all-out attack. The biggest battle of the day ensued for control of television. In the hail of gunfire, heavy casualties were reported on both sides. Anti-Yeltsin forces took at least one floor of the building, setting off explosions in the lobby. But after a 3.5-hour battle, the TV station was still largely in the hands of pro-Yeltsin forces. 3 of Moscow's 4 TV channels were knocked off the air for a while. The remaining channel broadcast Boris Yeltsin's decree declaring a state of emergency. Yeltsin, who appeared back at the Kremlin, announced he was stripping Alexander Rutskoy of his military rank. Rutskoy had gained some popularity as an Afghan war hero. Yeltsin also denounced today the violence as carried out by criminals attempting to bring Russia to civil war. As news spreads here that their victory may be short-lived, the anti-Yeltsin crowd behind me around the parliament has grown increasingly nervous. There are some reports more guns have been given out. Russian television reports President Yeltsin is moving troop reinforcements to the heart of the city. At the Russian White House, they're preparing to do battle. Peter?
Close to the Russian White House, we do not want to use lights on him. That's why he appears on a night scope, and if anything happens in the course of the broadcast, we'll get him back up. It's the middle of the night in Moscow now, and while the deputy Russian prime minister has called for a show of citizen force in public to support Yeltsin, aides of Yeltsin acknowledge it is probably too dangerous. We do not know a great deal about the movement of those troops allegedly loyal to Mr. Yeltsin, but they've been ordered to restore law and order and to fire back if fired on. A late report says that a column of at least 40 armored vehicles has rolled into central Moscow this evening and taken up positions outside the defense ministry and near the Kremlin, but we're not absolutely certain they are completely loyal to Mr. Yeltsin. At any rate, the question is, to shore up his authority, they're going to have to deal with other armed men who are still in control of the Russian White House where the parliament is. The weakness of Mr. Yeltsin's opponents is this: the only thing they have in common is opposition to Yeltsin. Beyond that, there are hundreds of different agendas. ABC's David Ensor on who the people were in today's mob.
It seemed today as if he was everywhere. General Albert Makashov at the barricades, on the balcony of the captured mayor's office, and commanding the attack on the Russian television center. Makashov is a hardline communist and an ardent anti-Semitic Russian nationalist. He ran against Yeltsin for president and got less than 6%. Viktor Anpilov was everywhere today, too. He is the leader of a communist faction of the outlawed parliament.
We will meet death face to face if necessary, as warriors do.
Their leader is Alexander Rutskoy, once Yeltsin's vice president, now his arch enemy. He calls Yeltsin a criminal for abandoning the Constitution. His aide says Yeltsin can only win by shooting many Russians.
The only way for them is to shoot the people, but in this case the blood will be on the shoulders of the people who will order to shoot the people.
What the people in this crowd want is a return to what they see as the good old days. Most of them would like to see the Soviet Union reestablished. Some of them even want it to be communist. But along with red banners and some neo-Nazi symbols, there were also the yellow, white, and black banners of those who want the monarchy back. Among the crowd backing the outlawed parliament are ordinary Russians, too, who believe their country under Yeltsin has become a poor, pitiful giant. Why? Why are you against him?
Because I understand what happened with our country. Now our country is the situation in our country is worsening and worsening day by day.
And many in the crowd are angry at President Clinton for backing Yeltsin.
We are for the Constitution. Your government supports this dictator. Why?
But tonight, other Russians are counting on Yeltsin to hit back hard.
Future depends on this night. This night would give the answer for the very long time.
And tonight, Russians are waiting to see what men in uniform will do. David Ensor, ABC News, Moscow.
Well, one of the places they are waiting is in the Kremlin itself, and ABC's Garrick Utley is there as well, where Mr. Yeltsin and his team are trying to get things under control. I think we have Garrick on the telephone. Do we, Garrick?
Yes, Peter, I am here. Just a moment ago, I spoke with Dmitry Rudakov, who was a member of one of the press aides to President Yeltsin. He said the president is still awake, meeting with his ministers and staff here in the Kremlin. He's going to stay here overnight, may not get much sleep at all. He described Yeltsin as being calm and confident. But the real question is whether today's actions, the violence, the bloodshed, strengthens him or weakens him. And many people think it may weaken Yeltsin because, in the end of the day, he was forced to use military units, military force.
Well, these opponents of his oppose economic reform. He's been undemocratic trying to put them down. What's the feeling elsewhere in the country where I know you've been traveling in the last recent days?
Everywhere you go in the country, I've been in the southern part, along the southern border of Russia, you hear the word chaos. Everybody is completely fed up with the chaos. They're completely fed up with this ongoing confrontation between the president and parliament. They want it brought to an end. And we should note that despite these horrific scenes we've seen this evening on the streets of Moscow, only a few thousand people were involved. Everybody else was staying as far away from it as they possibly could. And as far as the economic reforms are concerned, it's very difficult to see how they can proceed until this issue is settled, and it's not at all clear that it has been settled today.
One last question about the mood in the Kremlin tonight. Do his aides give off the feeling that they're confident about getting it under control in the short run?
They give off that aura, but it's still too early to tell. I think we're going to have to wait through tomorrow to see how public opinion reacts to this, whether Yeltsin really has won. Many people think that at the end of the day or at the end of tomorrow, that at some point he's going to have to agree to go back and deal with some of these opponents to try to strike some kind of a compromise agreement. He has not scored a victory by any means today,
okay.
At least not yet.
Garrick Utley in the Kremlin, thanks very much indeed. In Russia's second largest city, St. Petersburg, the mayor, who was a Yeltsin ally, is putting extra security forces on patrol outside important government buildings there, just in case, as he put it, Mr. Yeltsin's opponents in St. Petersburg are encouraged by what they see going on in Moscow. By the way, because of the difficulties with television, they may not necessarily be able to see it. We'll be back with more on all this, including Washington's reaction, in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by the members and partners of the Chemical Manufacturers Association.
In just 1 year, something happened to 640 million pounds of chemical pollutants. Instead of becoming waste, they were captured for recycling. The members and partners of the Chemical Manufacturers Association, working for change.
As the hands of time run through your hair, the clock ticks. As the winds of change blow through it, the clock ticks. Now you can battle the harsh effects of the environment with the power of natural botanicals in Biolash Hydrating Shampoo. So the winds of change are calmed, so the hands of time lose their grip. Until the world is a safer place for your hair, there's Biolash.
Biolash Hydrating Shampoo by Matrix, only in fine salons.
Well, here's the latest visible example of what's been happening in Moscow overnight. This is a column of armored personnel carriers coming into the city from another location. It's very hard to tell exactly where they're coming from. The avenues are very wide in all parts of the city. We're told there are about 40 in this particular column, that their intention has been to take up positions outside the Defense Ministry and in the general area of the Kremlin. As they're going to the Kremlin area, it would certainly suggest on the surface of it that they've been called in by Mr. Yeltsin, or at least elements in the military loyal to Mr. Yeltsin. But that's what it looks like on the streets of Moscow tonight, and that is the kind of thing which has caused so much anxiety. It's about 8 hours later than it is on the east coast of the United States, middle of the night there. And as Garrick Utley just said from the Kremlin, far from being resolved. Though there have been several indications this week that Mr. Yeltsin was prepared, as we mentioned earlier, to act in an undemocratic way to smother his opponents, Alexander Rutskoy, and also the Speaker of the Parliament, Ruslan Khasbulatov, the Clinton administration's support for Mr. Yeltsin has not wavered. Here, for example, was the president today on the White House lawn.
It is clear that the violence was perpetrated by the Rutskoy-Khasbulatov forces, that there has been significant violence today in Moscow. It is also clear that President Yeltsin bent over backwards to avoid the use of force, to avoid excessive force from the beginning of this. And I still am convinced that the United States must support President Yeltsin and the process of bringing about free and fair elections.
Let's go live to Washington now, where ABC's Barry Dunsmore has been monitoring events in Washington and in Moscow. He's at the State Department. Barry, first about the American Embassy in Moscow. It's almost next door to the Russian Parliament there, and there hasn't been a great deal of mention in it today, but what about the embassy staff and other American families?
Well, they're fine, and Ambassador Pickering, the U.S. ambassador in Moscow, is looking after things. He actually walked to the embassy today because it was difficult to get out on the streets. As you say, they're right in the middle of it, but right now they seem to be quite safe.
We heard one woman in David Ensor's report, I think she's actually a parliamentarian, accusing the Clinton administration of supporting a dictator. Why this fervent support or determined support for Boris Yeltsin from Clinton?
Well, I think you heard the president say it, Peter. At least that's the line they're taking, that the Rutskoy-Khasbulatov people are the bad guys. They, after all, are the ones that started the fighting as far as Washington is concerned. And that really does give the United States the ability to support Yeltsin in what he is about to do next. And I think the broad assumption is that he's really going to crack down.
And is there support for that in Washington, that he use force in order to bring his opponents to heel?
I think so, Peter. I've been talking to senior officials, including the point man for President Clinton, and a couple of times he made the point, this is very, very serious. This is extremely serious. Let's face it, the United States has a lot at stake here. It's worried, and it wants to see this thing end as quickly as possible. And if Mr. Yeltsin has to, in the phrase, break a few eggs to make this omelet, I think Washington will be quite happy about it.
Barry Dunsmore of the State Department, thank you. We'll have a little more about this at the end of the broadcast. Break in if anything happens, but there is other news. And we'll be back in just a moment.
Is this something new?
It's a different kind of V8 vegetable juice.
With the picante.
What's the picante?
Kind of spicy. Not too spicy.
It's got punch.
It's jalapeno-y.
Wow.
It's a very zippy drink.
I taste wild Mexican spices.
What? Yeah, and it's got all these vegetables in it.
This is delicious. You got any more of this?
V8 picante. This is it. I was in Mexico once.
Evident users, what would get you to switch to new Denture Cream?
If it got my dentures cleaner.
Denture Cream cleans twice as clean as Evident.
If it got them fresher.
Now Denture Cream is even mintier.
Cleaner.
Fresher.
Better. Switch to new Denture Cream.
You mean if I call my son in college the most, Sprint pays half?
Now there's a new reason to switch to the most.
What if I told you he goes to college in Japan?
No problem. Call anyone, anywhere, anytime, and Sprint will split the bill on the person you call most.
I don't suppose there's anything you could do about his tuition bill.
Sorry, we have to draw the line somewhere.
Call now and save 50% with Sprint's calling plan, the most.
Now Maalox comes in a brand new flavor. Water. Introducing new easy-to-swallow Maalox Caplets. The antacid that doesn't taste like one.
Okay, here's a real nightmare. Imagine a stove made of glass. What a greasy mess. But it's the perfect job for new Glass and Surface Windex Clear. See, some all-purpose cleaners leave a cloudy residue. New Windex Clear has a unique degreasing formula for a clean that's crystal clear. So say goodbye to cloudy residue, now for all your surfaces. There's new Glass and Surface Windex Clear for a clean as clear as glass from S.C. Johnson Wax.
Other news certainly means the earthquake in India, and there was a clear indication today how tough it has been dealing with last week's earthquake. India, which is very proud of its self-sufficiency, has agreed to accept overseas assistance. Nobody is quite sure how many people have been killed. The estimates range from 10,000 to 30,000 dead. ABC's Ron Allen is still there.
The flames of this huge outdoor crematorium burn constantly as survivors methodically destroy the bodies. The task is proceeding quickly to prevent the decomposing corpses from spreading disease. Are there still more people?
Heaps of them. I mean, the rubble's blowing all around, you can see, you know. So as the bulldozers and as they cleared, we'd have more and more people coming here for cremation.
The injured line hospital hallways, their relatives maintaining bedside vigils, waiting for doctors who have little medicine or bandages. This woman says she and two of her children were pulled from the rubble after several hours. The disaster area has become mired in confusion, the roads clogged with thousands of people. Police and soldiers who've launched their largest peacetime operation ever spend much of their time just trying to control the crowds. With all of this chaos, it's hard to tell who is here to help and who is here just driven by curiosity to see what happened. This grave natural disaster has also become a huge public attraction. Get away from here. Go home if you're not going to help, this man yells at the crowd. He and other volunteers are trying to clear away the rubble to make sure every dead body has been removed. Indian authorities have been able to set up some tent camps. Desperate victims of the earthquake descend on every government vehicle that has any aid to offer. Night, foreign relief flights such as this U.S. plane began arriving now that the Indian government has agreed to accept outside help. But for now, at the earthquake's epicenter, it is people that are arriving en masse, and for those who have traveled miles to see what's happened to their loved ones like this family, the journey often ends in tears. Ron Allen, ABC News, Kilare.
Still overseas in Somalia today, 3 Marines were wounded and their Somali translator killed when they drove over a landmine in the capital, Mogadishu. And there are also reports that 2 U.S. helicopters have been shot down over Mogadishu. There is still no word on their crews. In Washington this week, the Secretary of Defense, Les Aspin, is going to decide whether to fire the most senior naval officer in the country, Admiral Frank Kelso. The Secretary of the Navy, John Dalton, has recommended that Admiral Kelso be dismissed for failing to prevent sexual harassment at the Tailhook Convention of Navy aviators 2 years ago from getting out of control. Here's ABC's Bob Zelnick.
While his aides examined the case against Admiral Kelso, Defense Secretary Aspin insisted he remains open-minded.
Not made a decision, will not have anything till Monday, probably, maybe Tuesday.
Pentagon sources familiar with the report say Secretary Dalton bases his recommendation almost entirely on the fact that Admiral Kelso was in charge of the Navy when Tailhook occurred and therefore is accountable. But the Admiral's defenders argue that Kelso has been cleared by an Inspector General's investigation and has been at the front of efforts to reform the Navy's treatment of women, including permitting them to serve in combat. On This Week with David Brinkley, Sam Nunn, chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, said Kelso should not be held responsible.
But if it's the captain should go down with the ship kind of philosophy, we have to look. It's 2 years later. The ship's already down.
The Dalton report also recommends that more than a dozen other admirals receive letters of reprimand. Thus far, the botched tailhook investigation has cost former Navy Secretary Lawrence Garrett and 2 senior legal officers their jobs. 27 other officers have received letters of reprimand for their conduct at the convention. But while the Inspector General found that dozens of sexual assaults had been committed in the hotel corridor, most serious crimes have gone unpunished. One reason, many would-be witnesses are suspected of wrongdoing and have kept quiet to protect themselves. 5 cases have been scheduled for courts-martial. One of those, involving Navy Lieutenant Cole Cowden, was dismissed last month for lack of evidence. More than a year ago, during the Bush administration, Admiral Kelso did offer his resignation. It was turned down on grounds he had done nothing to undermine anyone's confidence in his leadership. Bob Zelnick, ABC News at the Pentagon.
Customary on Sunday to have the sports. We'll be back with some of them in just a moment.
When you think about plastic, you may think about things like strong, lightweight garbage cans. Think again about life-saving automotive airbags made of plastic. When you look at these plastic containers, you may wonder if they're being recycled. Take another look. Millions of them are being recycled every day, which we can use to make things like strong, lightweight garbage cans. To learn more, call this number for a free booklet and take another look at plastic.
It's Red Lobster's Lobster Fest.
Grab the gang and head on down to a swinging lobster party. It's the talk of the town.
Main tails, rock tails, new combinations, all at special prices. Hurry in. Red Lobster's Lobster Fest ends October 17th.
Oh, that was wonderful.
I have to see it. If a movie got great reviews, you'd go see it, wouldn't you?
Absolutely fantastic.
If everyone kept talking about a book, you'd probably read it. And if Automobile Magazine called this Toyota Camry the best car built in America, you'd give it a test drive, right? The 1993 Toyota Camry. Everything you've heard is true.
Can you afford the great fit and comfort of LensCrafters glasses? Of course you can, because our wide selection of comfortable frames starts at under $50. Now we have the prices you want and the perfect fit you need.
LensCrafters. Find a lower price, we'll match it, guaranteed.
The good news, diets rich in antioxidants may benefit your long-term health. The bad news, the average diet is not rich in antioxidants. Today's news, Protegra, the new antioxidant supplement that's all antioxidants. More vitamin E, vitamin C, and beta-carotene. Protegra, with more antioxidant support than you get from a regular multivitamin. To boost your antioxidant levels, even if you take a multivitamin, add Protegra to your daily routine. Protegra, the good news in antioxidants.
Monday, Amtrak's worst tragedy. What was it like? Survivors and heroes relive the horror, moment by moment. Day 1, Monday.
Because of Moscow, there isn't much time for sports, but there is time for baseball. Here's ABC's Dick Schaap. Dick?
Thank you, Peter. The Atlanta Braves are on the brink of winning the National League's Western Division Championship for the 3rd straight year. Atlanta won its closing game this afternoon, taking a 4-0 lead over Colorado when Chris Jones played Ron Gant's 4th-inning single into a 2-run triple. But Colorado battled back and drew within a run 4-3 on Roberto Mejia's 7th-inning home run. Dave Justice provided the Braves with a slight cushion with his 40th home run in the 7th inning. The Braves then wrapped up their 104th victory this season. Terry Pendleton's leaping catch combining with Greg McMichael's relief pitching to shut down Colorado in the 9th inning, putting the Braves half a game ahead of San Francisco. The Giants are playing Los Angeles right now, needing a small miracle to stay alive. The Dodgers jumped off to a 1-0 lead on Dave Hansen's 3rd-inning single and now lead 7-1 in the 8th inning. Unless the Giants come back, which is unlikely, the Braves will meet Philadelphia in the National League Championship Series. Peter?
Thank you, Dick. More from Moscow in just a moment.
I know this artist very well. This is one of his earlier works.
It's bold, it's simple.
It's some guy's jacket.
When your stomach takes a wrong turn, turn to Maalox, because Maalox moments only last a moment.
Come on, sweetheart! Your first big snow, Joey. Here he comes.
Joey doesn't care that inside is the world's most energy-efficient furnace.
Here he comes, here he comes.
Or that Carrier can save up to 40% annually on heating.
Look at him. He loves it.
All he cares about is how warm and comfy Carrier keeps it inside.
Hey, come on. Joe?
If you care about energy efficiency and saving money, call your Carrier dealer.
Turn the knob, Joey.
Carrier, we're the inside guys.
Who makes the liveliest Mexican dressing? You do. Because now there's Mexican spice from Good Seasons. A unique blend of savory spices bring a lively taste to any salad. New Mexican spice.
From Good Seasons.
They opened with a huge Monday night victory. Now the hungry Redskins are looking to dine on Dan Marino and the Dolphins. This week on ABC's Monday Night Football.
To end this evening, we want to go back to Moscow, where ABC's Jim Laurie is standing by. Jim, you're closer to the Russian parliament than anybody has been. That's a night scope on you because we don't want to show a lot of light. Tell us what's happening.
Well, the people are still very nervous inside the Parliament building and outside. There were a number of hostages taken in some of the government buildings around here, and they were taken into that building behind me. They are now being released, we are told. And about a mile from me, in this direction, is the Defense Ministry of Russia, and apparently a large number of troops loyal to Boris Yeltsin have arrived at the Defense Ministry, backed by armored personnel carriers. There is an incredible buildup of military force in the Russian capital tonight.
And Jim, we have focused on this particular location where you are and at Ostenkinko, the television station about 8 miles from you. What about the rest of Moscow?
The rest of this city is remarkably quiet. People have taken the advice that was given on television and stayed at home for the most part. They do not want to be involved, and they're not out in the streets. In fact, the crowds of supporters of the parliament people, those crowds have dwindled considerably in the last hour. There aren't very many people out on the streets tonight, Peter.
Now, is television back on? Are people in the rest of the country getting a sense of what happened there today, or are they still isolated?
Television is back on the air on 3 of the 4 channels that broadcast from Moscow. They're not fully up to service. For example, they're not able to broadcast from their main studios. They're using a secondary studio for their broadcast. They've been having talk shows, people coming on discussing the evening's events.
Jim, do you have any sense that this is going to spread, or do you, because you know the place pretty well, do you think this is going to be contained in the next 24 hours?
I would suspect that now, with the full backing of the military and military commanders, regional commanders have been voicing their support for Boris Yeltsin. With that military support, this thing can be contained by Yeltsin.
Jim Laurie, thanks very much in Moscow. That's our broadcast. I'm Peter Jennings. Good night.
What if your baby disappeared?
That's impossible.
And no one believed you? Lori Loughlin, Kate Jackson, inspired by a true story, Empty Cradle, Sunday.
Most stores give you a choice of 1, maybe 2. At our store, you get 8. A choice of 8 of the best-selling Marcarelli leather sofas. Top that off with our 30-day guarantee. If you don't like it, we'll make it right for you. In fact, we'll even refund your money.
Now at Rhodes Furniture, choose from 8 styles of glove-soft Italian leather sofas priced at just $5.99. You can always get great values on leather sofas at Rhodes because Irwin says so.
Somebody's got to say so. It might as well be me.
93-octane BP Super. Since we've introduced it, it's attracted a lot of attention. It's BP's best choice in quality gasolines. Only BP Super has 93 octane, the highest level of engine cleaning power. Plus an unconditional fuel system guarantee. No other gasoline gives you all this. Any wonder it's created such a following? BP, on the move.
Full House, weekdays at 4 on Channel 2.